You can't look at today's Iran and equate it with the Iran of 5 years ago, even. And when you're equating the possible retaliatory danger, which is what the commander in chief has to factor in, he doesn't want to see American troops get killed or American civilians. And, you know, the danger has gone down. It's not eliminated, and it never will be. And what you're getting now, Victor, what we're at risk of seeing now is these, you know, people who didn't want to see it, some of the more extreme ones, when and if Iran does anything to retaliate and we suffer any American losses. I told you, you see, it wasn't worth it. And I just you can't run a country that way.
No, I mean, the last day that Barack Obama was in office, on January 19th of 2017, his Parthian shot to us was he unilaterally, without congressional authority or consultation, sent B-2s, the very same bombers that Trump sent. He sent them all the way to Libya to bomb Libya. And he had been bombing on Libya since 2011. And it didn't result in anything but chaos and destruction and killing. And I had gone to that country in 2007. And whatever we said about this monstrous Gaddafi, his children were starting to take over, and he was anti-Islamic at that point. He wasn't good, he wasn't bad, but it was better than the alternative we have now. No one said a word on the Democrat. Tim Kaine was the head of the Democratic Party, the DNC, I think in 2015. And he didn't say, he had never said a word about any of this. And, you know, you make a good point about the MAGA. They agree, they have good points, but the base that is skeptical, but they agree with 85% of the Trump agenda. And they can't go anywhere because the alternative is democratic insanity. So they're gonna offer criticism. And, you know, Tucker, our friend Tucker, he said in that tumultuous debate with Ted Cruz, he was surprised when Ted Cruz suggested that Tucker might not know that they tried to kill Trump. Well, that alleged Afghan assassin was indicted. He was indicted by the Biden DOJ in November of 2004. And it's pretty clear, the evidence that's mounted, that they did try to kill him. And Tucker responded to that by saying, if that were true, I would support nuking Iran. That was what he said. So, I mean, he has criticisms, but he's a Jacksonian in a way too. And so that's what Trump was, and you're absolutely right. He never ran on anything other than in a cost-to-benefit analysis, I'm going to find a way to maintain, preserve, and enhance deterrence for the U.S. so we don't have to get in forever wars. And sometimes that means Soleimani, that means Baghdadi, that means ISIS, that means taking out the Wagner Group. But these are self-limiting situations that on a cost-to-benefit analysis help our strategic stability and safety. That's all he was. He never said anything else. He was not an isolationist, and he wasn't an interventionist. And I think people forget that about him.
The critical left, some on the right, now trying to challenge this, like President Trump didn't have the constitutional authorization ability to do that. It's so absurd that not only did he have the right under Article 2 of the Constitution to drop these bombs, you have a very strong case he had the duty to do it, to protect the homeland. There's actually a very strong argument there. And he 100% had the ability under the authorization for the use of military force, the AUMF that was passed after 9/11 with Congress's approval. That is a congressionally approved document that both sides of the aisle rushed to approve post 9/11. Even though they didn't technically, Bush didn't even need it then. He could do what he needed to do. We'd been attacked. So that's still in place, and it allows the commander in chief to respond to any threats, and including anticipated threats. And there's no requirement that it be imminent, none whatsoever. So it'd be great to update that for the more modern day warfare we're facing, and like how it's all weird, you know, insurrectionists who aren't exactly, you know, necessarily state sponsored in all cases. Andy McCarthy makes a great point on this in his own podcast, which everyone should listen to from this past Friday. But there's no question that this was authorized and was not extra legal in any way, Victor.
No, and there was de facto precedent. Obama used predator drone assassinations constantly, and he even joked about it. The White House correspondence, he said, if anybody wants to date my daughters, be careful, it's called Predator. It was kind of a sick joke. And then, of course, we had John Brennan, who lied under oath. And then when he was asked, are you killing collaterally? Well, no, we haven't killed. And then he had to retract that and apologize for perjuring himself. And then we get into Joe Biden. I mean, there were 300 attacks essentially all over the Middle East that he didn't respond to. But finally, he did a little bit, 4 or 5 times. But he did. No one on the left said you can't hit back or you can't preempt unless you have congressional authority. So, and the same thing with the Houthis, both Biden and Trump, but Biden anemically responded or preempted and attacked the Houthis. So it's kind of, I mean, there used to be people within the Democratic Party that were to the right of Donald Trump, believe it or not. You can see those old clips of Hillary Clinton asked when she was contemplating a run for the presidency, what would you do about Iran and the nuclear? She said, it sounds horrible, but I would obliterate it if they were getting a bomb. And I'm not condoning what she said, but that was a strong wing of the Democratic Party. And that is completely vanished now. And partly because there's kind of a nihilism, there is a nihilism now in the Democratic Party that whatever Donald Trump says or does, it has to be evil and stopped at all cost. And the result of that extremism is they become caricatures of themselves. They really have. They're not serious
Andy
people.
pointing out in his own podcast the following, that there was an 1863 U.S. Supreme Court ruling, note the timing, that if the United States is under threat from an external force, the president has the duty to act and to use whatever force is necessary to protect the homeland. That's a constitutional interpretation. Long before the AUMF. Then came the AUMF, which made very clear that any organization that aided the attacks or those who perpetrated them and any move necessary to prevent future attacks on the United States is authorized by this congressionally approved document. Congress has the power to declare war. We're not doing that. In fact, we're doing exactly the opposite. And the New York Times came out with a headline the night of the bombings that read, it was America enters war with Iran. Well, that's not quite right, New York Times. And J.D. Vance clarified it, Victor, by saying we're not at war with Iran. We did not go to Congress. We did not need to do that because we're not declaring war on Iran. We're doing targeted strikes, and you just made reference to it, Victor. But here's just a little montage of Barack Obama doing exactly the same. I don't remember AOC or the likes of AOC demanding that he be impeached, as we're seeing now. But here's just a montage of him and his military strikes and him talking about them.
Last night, on my orders, America's armed forces began strikes against ISIL targets in Syria. Today, at my direction, the United States launched a targeted operation against that compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan. Today, I authorized the armed forces of the United States to begin a limited military action in Libya in support of an international
2011
effort to protect Libyan civilians.
What? Libya? This is what you're pointing out, like Libya. What? To protect Libyan civilians?
Civilians,
what?
absolutely.
Just
You can
spare
always
me.
see the viability of any operation. You can judge by the poverty or the persuasiveness of the critics. And so as you start to look at all these different critics, the Arab world, everybody said the Arab world would go up in flames. But what's happening in the Arab world was on spec. They're privately communicating to the Iranians who are right across the Gulf. We didn't have anything to do with this. We're innocent. Then they have public announcements that they deplore the escalation. They would like calm. And then they're privately, frantically saying to us and the Israelis, if you're going to do this, please end it. Don't leave a wounded Iran on our doorstep. So we support you only if you destroy their complete nuclear program and defang them. Then you look at China and Russia. China, they get 80% of their pre-embargoed oil. They buy 80% of Iran's oil. They get 50% from the Gulf. The last thing in the world they want is any more upheaval. So they're not saying anything other than everybody calm down.
We are days away from what has been dubbed by some the Rio Reset, what some worry could be a threat to the U.S. dollar's global dominance in over 80 years. On July 6th, BRICS nations, that's Russia, China, India, and Iran, and some more, are expected to unveil their plans to circumvent the U.S. dollar, thus creating cratering, I should say, its value. Some report that they've already been laying the groundwork as their central banks have been methodically divesting from the US dollar and US bonds in favor of gold. How can you protect your IRA or 401k from the fallout from this landmark shift? One option is to diversify with gold from Birch Gold Group. Historically, gold has been a safe haven in times of high uncertainty, which is right now. Get a free info kit on tax-sheltered gold IRAs by texting the word MK letters to 989898. July 6th could mark a monumental shift happening among nations that control 1/3 of the world's GDP. Arm yourself with information to diversify your retirement savings. Text MK to 989898 and claim your free info kit from Birch Gold. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.